I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, folks. A couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to interview Steve from Thinking Sideways podcast and Joe from Thinking Sideways podcast. That's 2 out of the 3 hosts of that show. And now I bring to you Devin from Thinking Sideways podcast. That means I got the whole set. In this episode, we talk about why they decided to be anonymous for the entire run of their podcast, as well as how the 3 met. We also talk about how Devin met her new husband and their recent trip to Italy. Plus, she tells us how they decided on the name Thinking Sideways and what's next for Devin. Is she going to have a new podcast? Is she going to have a couple of new podcasts? Enjoy, guys. This is Devin from Thinking Sideways.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
This episode of Not Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by our Facebook interpretive dance team.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't get it.
Approach the ideas. You must unlearn what you have learned. I don't know.
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Welcome to Fascination Street, Devin from Thinking Sideways. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
I cannot complain.
That's good.
We are going to automatically assume, I would assume, that you have no last name. Is that correct?
That is correct, just like my other co-host. When we started a podcast, we legally got rid of all of our last names, so we just don't have last names anymore.
So what made you guys decide to do that?
To get rid of the last name?
Yeah, why be anonymous?
Oh, why be anonymous? Like seriousness? Or why
like for
be
real?
Anonymous? No, so when we first started the podcast, it was kind of in the beginning of podcasts being a thing, and the only people that were really doing true crime, well, we were all doing unsolved mystery podcasts at that point, but there were only 2 other podcasts that were in a similar vein, which were Generation Y and Sword and Scale. And I think we just kind of felt like we weren't really sure if it was a good idea to be sharing all of our personal information all over the place. The point wasn't really to become celebrities like, Mike has off of Sword and Scale. And we just kind of felt like we didn't need to have last names. It was probably easier for us to just be anonymous and not let people necessarily know who we were. We were talking about some kind of gruesome stuff sometimes, and we just, I think, felt that it just made more sense for our lives to not have that be broadcast all over our real lives. As the medium developed, it became less of an issue, and actually ended up being more detrimental to our ability to stay anonymous than anything. But I think in the beginning, that was just kind of our feeling, was we didn't really think that it was safe or prudent to be giving out all of our personal information.
Now, you said that it sort of became detrimental. How so?
I think it ended up being troll bait, because before we went to the first crime con, so like 3 years ago now, I guess, we were like militant about not allowing our identities to be found out. Like we wouldn't post pictures of ourselves anywhere. It felt really important to keep our identities separate and secret. But I think that ended up in the long run being troll bait. I certainly know that there were a couple instances that I had that I've talked about on the Justin's Peripheral podcast. I talked about this instance where some online troll tweeted me a picture of my parents' house.
Whoa.
And yeah, that was really scary. And I didn't feel like I wanted to do the podcast anymore. But I think that ended up just being a challenge to trolls more than anything, that we were trying to, be anonymous and not really broadcast ourselves. And granted, we weren't hiding behind VPNs or changing our IP addresses or anything like that. We we weren't to that level, but I think it did end up kind of being this challenge almost to a lot of trolls on the internet. So that's why I say it ended up being a bit detrimental.
So it's sort of like it was a signal to all the black hats, like, challenge accepted. I'm going to find out who these people are.
It kind of felt like that. And, there weren't a ton of people. I mean, there was probably just a few people who took it as a challenge. There were a small amount of people who did go out and stalk us and did find some things about us on the internet, but, not in like a scary way necessarily, not in a threatening way, but just in a, hey, just, I found you online. I'm not going to tell anybody who you guys are, but we found you online. And then, most of the people were pretty respectful about our, not wanting our personal lives to be broadcast around the show, which I think, was intentional. The show wasn't about us. It was about unsolved mysteries. And I think we felt that bringing our own personal lives into that was detrimental, though, again, as the industry kind of evolved and grew, that ended up not being the case so much. It ended up that people who care about true crime podcasts care also about the people creating them, which is interesting and cool and unique in the community, but was unexpected for us. At least for me. I can't speak for Joe and Steve, but it was unexpected for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We are going to jump around a little bit. So
that's fine.
Is there an age difference between the three of you? Like, I feel like those two dudes are probably 10 years older than you. Is that about ish? No?
There's about 10 years between all three of us. So Steve is about 10 years older than me, and then Joe is about 10 years older than that.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't tell you that, so I'm going to assume that he's going to be really mad when he hears that I have spilled the beans. But yeah, Joe is probably old enough to be my parent.
Interesting. It didn't come up. I don't think I asked him. I know that Steve offhandedly mentioned that you were quite a bit younger than both of them, but I don't think it really came up like that. Interesting.
He was being nice. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's about 10 years difference between the two of them as well.
Wow. I did not see that coming. All right. So then that begs the question, since all of you three are from completely different decades, how did you all meet?
Well, you know the story. You've heard it. You asked Joe. And probably Steve.
Wait, you listened to Joe's?
I listened to part of it.
Damn it.
Because I wanted to make sure we had the story straight. Also, that's all you put in your social media stuff was that you talked about it.
So the funny thing is that when I interviewed Joe, I hadn't released Steve's episode yet. So Joe was untainted. And I was really hoping that you would be untainted because Joe and Steve told completely different stories about how y'all three met.
Oh, okay. So who told which story?
Well, the way Steve told it was that those two were, I don't know, having beers at a bar, talking about probably DB Cooper or something. And then some girl who neither one of them knew sat down next to them and sort of just a little bit joined into the conversation. And then that's kind of how y'all met. And then I think that happened maybe one more time before y'all really just started really talking. But the way Joe told it, he was like, oh, we knew Devin already. I was like, really? So now that you've been tainted by both stories, how did y'all meet?
We met at a bar, but I think that Joe just feels like we knew each other for long enough that they just knew me already. I mean, it wasn't like we met twice and decided to start doing a podcast. I butted in and we just kind of became friends, hanging out like you do at the bar, I guess is a thing. It's weird, that's the only friend I've ever made at the bar, but there you go. Or the only set of friends I've ever made at the bar, but we just decided we had something in common. And I think Steve always wanted to do a podcast. So we just kind of thought that it'd be fun to stop sitting at the bar and talking about these things and start recording ourselves and talking about them and see what came of it. But it wasn't like we met twice and someone started recording a thing. It was that's formed a friendship.
No, that's not how he told it. I probably relayed it a little wrong, but he just made it sound like you were a complete stranger who sort of butted into their conversation and then y'all all became friends. But then Joe kind of made it sound like y'all were friends long before this conversation happened.
No, he's wrong.
Rock on.
He's misremembering.
Way to go. Oh, it's because he's so old.
It's because he's so old. Oh, he's going to be real mad.
Oh, that's why Joe didn't want to tell me his last name, because it's AARP.
Yeah, that's it.
So that's how y'all met. Now, when did you get into podcasts, listening to a podcast?
The first time I discovered podcasts was probably 2011. And for all I really knew, it was just like how you listen to NPR shows after they were on the air. You know, it was like Radiolab and This American Life and Car Talk, and you just got to listen to them in the car while you were driving across the country with your mom, for instance, as a random example that is definitely not a personal story at all. So
wait, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you. Are you telling me that Click and Clack was a podcast?
Yeah, they still are.
My God.
I mean, it's not like new content, but yeah, they're a podcast. So
What?
NPR just was doing all of their stuff as podcast form. I mean, you know, they just had it edited correctly, so they just dropped it into Apple Podcasts.
Right.
So that's when I first encountered them. But those were really the only ones that I actually listened to, because pretty quickly I ended up being on one with Steve and Joe. And I think what happened is when we first started, I was still listening to a lot of like Radiolab, and stylistically, Radiolab is like the dream, you know, of a podcast in my mind. It's like this beautifully produced with weird ambient music and like beautiful interviews, so interesting, and all the NPR voices, you know, that are really soothing and calming, and when we first started Thinking Sideways, it was crazy because we were trying really, really hard to be something like that, despite the fact that none of us are audio engineers and we were self-producing, and like it was really a beautiful, clumsy, ham-fisted attempt by Steve, but still, you know, we were just like amateurs being idiots, trying to be something that we weren't. I know a lot of our listeners reminisce fondly about the Lost 26, which are the first 26 episodes we did, which we did have music and sound effects and weird stuff like that in, and we've since gone back and re-edited them so they don't contain any of that content. But I discovered that if I was listening to podcasts while producing a podcast, it was my inclination to try to emulate those podcast styles, no matter what kind of podcast it was. And so while we were producing Thinking Sideways, I didn't really listen to podcasts, with the rare exception of, you know, we had some friends that we made in the industry, and every once in a while I'd listen to one of their podcasts. But in general, I just did not listen to podcasts for 5 years. And now I'm getting over my PTSD and hoping to be able to listen to podcasts without being weird and judgy. So I think I'm going to start a new podcast project soon, so I may have to dip back into my podcast abstinence.
Well, that is very interesting. Do you like my NPR voice?
Yeah, no, it's a good one, right? NPR voices are good. I'm very bad at doing NPR voices. I'm not very good at it.
Really? Just take some Ambien or get super high or something.
Yeah, I mean, I should, but I don't think that actually helps. I just get really sleepy and don't want to do anything anymore. So.
Oh my God, me too. I'm like, oh, it's time to go night-night.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's kind of like the way comedians don't watch or listen to other comedians because
because you end up accidentally stealing their joke.
Right. And then you don't even know where it came from. It's just in your head and you're like, oh, that's a great idea.
You're like, it's hilarious. And then suddenly someone's like, you stole that from this person. And you're like, oh, shit.
Okay, so I do have to ask, when the three of you would hang out at the bar sometimes, I guess, before y'all decided y'all didn't have any more time for that because you were too busy doing all this podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
What was your drink of choice?
Actually, this is an interesting question because one of my best friends just texted me recently and was like, I think the Devin is either, like the drink, the Devin is either whiskey with a pickleback or a gin martini, extra dirty, extra dry with 3 olives, which is accurate. But when we were at that bar, usually it would have been like a Rainier, Montucky sort of situation, or whiskey, because it was a big old dive bar. But my go-to is usually a whiskey. And if a pickleback is on the table, then I will absolutely partake in a pickleback.
Interesting. We have those around here all the time.
Yeah, about half the bars in Portland have them. And I'm always really excited when I see them. I suppose I could ask. I suppose many bars have pickles. Is that a thing? Seems like they should have pickles. I don't know. Maybe not.
I think they have pickles.
I don't know. I don't know what bars serve. I just drink there a lot.
So when I said we have those around here, I meant at my house. We have them all the time at my house.
Yeah, we have a lot of failed attempts at homemade pickles in the fridge right now that I should just throw out because they're not really edible, but I just feel so sad to get rid of them. And then, like 3 other jars of pickles that are just juice at this point.
So my in-laws also love having picklebacks, but really I think they just love having them available for me when I come over. But what my father-in-law does, check this out. This is dope. He goes down to like the closest like hamburger fast food joint and he goes, "Excuse me, could I have some of that
Good idea.
pickle juice that you're going to throw away?" Because, they don't use it. They just throw it away. And so they give him like a 5-gallon bucket full of pickle juice every time he wants it.
That's the best idea I've ever heard.
Isn't that great? Because they just
I thought you were going to tell me that he sticks pickles in his pickle juice and then he gets to have a pickle snack while he's having his whiskey with his pickleback, which is what I do because I'm a degenerate. But yeah, pickles from a store is a really good idea. My husband's a chef, so I don't know why he doesn't bring me. I guess he doesn't work at places that have pickles a lot, so never mind.
Everybody has pickles.
But yeah, no, not everybody.
Oh, everybody has pickles.
Fancy restaurants don't usually.
You're going to the wrong ones.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, our local pickle depository, hamburger place just closed. So I'll have to find one. I mean, it's not like there's only one hamburger place in Portland. It's just the one that was closest to us. So
what closed?
It was called Humdinger. It was just a one local little spot. It was really sad, actually, because it was in Southwest Portland, and it was this tiny little store, and it had been opened since like the 1930s, but it just closed because I think it had been run by the same people the entire time almost, and they just got tired of it, or maybe their kids were running it and didn't want to run it anymore or something, but it was kind of sad. Granted, I was sad, but I had never actually gone, so I can't be that sad because I didn't actually ever support it, but,
You're the reason they closed.
Yeah, maybe. It's just me. They didn't have my $2. It's probably because they were selling hamburgers for $1 still. That's probably more why they closed, but I don't know, maybe.
That's crazy.
Yeah, this was weird because my dad had grown up going to this place, so he was like, oh, that's really sad that it closed.
Well, I hope he said it's also really sad that you never went.
It is. We didn't go because the Yelp reviews were like the guy who makes the burgers who usually has dirt under his fingers, which maybe is another reason they closed.
So, do you have a favorite episode of Thinking Sideways?
I do. Do you want to know what it is, or do you just want to, is that just a yes or no question?
I would love for you to tell me what it is.
It is the Lake City Quiet Pills.
Well, tell me more about that.
Did you hear that episode? Do you happen to remember that episode?
You guys have a lot of episodes, so if you could give me
that is true.
Some of the details,
no, that's okay.
it might jog my memory.
Yeah, for the record, I think we did 270 some odd episodes, so you cannot be faulted for not remembering one episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a internet-based, Reddit-based mystery where some guy found hidden in the hard code of a image file sharing website that was basically like a porno website, found what looked like a job posting board and chat room for black op wet work people. And it was a pretty crazy mystery. I did a couple actual interviews with a couple people who were Redditors who had been doing a lot of digging on it. There was some argument that it was actually an ARG, which is an augmented reality game or alternate reality game, depending on who you talk to, which I think most people kind of know what that is. But if you don't, you can do your own damn Googling. But it was in this really interesting time in my life where I had basically 2 months to dedicate to researching this one single episode, fairly uninterrupted. So I got a chance to actually research that episode the way that I wish I had the chance to research all of the episodes. It was this huge mind fuck of is this real or is it fake? And it actually culminated in a point where like I had been doing so much research and we finally recorded the episode. And then like a week later, there was like this van parked outside my apartment for like a couple days. Like it got to a point where I got so paranoid that I like honestly thought that I was being watched or followed. And it still leaves me questioning like the people that I interviewed, like, are they part of it? Because I don't know, like I just met them on the internet, and are they part of it? And if they are part of it, are they part of a game that is won by continuing to perpetuate this weird myth thing? Or are they actual like mercenaries who like, I don't even know. Like, it's just one of those episodes where like the episode was good. A lot of people that I talked to say it was their favorite episode. But on top of that, it ended up being this like real life mind fuck, like weirdness that just totally messed with my own reality for like 2 months, which was extra cool. So that's why that's my favorite episode.
Well, those are all great reasons. That sounds terrifying.
Retrospectively, it was kind of absurd, but I still don't really know. Many of the episodes that we did, you know, you kind of walk away feeling like you know one way or the other. But whenever I think about this, I have no idea. I still have no idea. And I have no idea what happened. I don't know who I was talking to, because I went back like a year later. I went back to see if I could like contact the Redditors, and the people that I talked to had been super hyperactive Redditors for like years and years and years. And I went back and their accounts had been deleted. And it was just one of those things where it was like, what actually like happened? Like, what is even going on here? And it was just kind of cool to get to be almost a part of it, you know?
Wow. You're right. That does sound like a mind fuck.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was super crazy. So that's my favorite episode for sure.
Wow. That's
but
crazy.
Also I think it was a good episode. So more than just like it was a crazy, weird situation in my own life, but I think it was also a really good episode. So there you go.
Sure. All right. So I feel like you recently got married.
Yeah, kind of. 6 months ago.
Oh, that's what you mean by kind of? You're not kind of married. It was just kind of recently?
Oh, yeah, kind of recently. That wasn't a kind of thing.
I was going to be like, what the hell is kind of married?
I don't know.
So that means you have a last name now. Congratulations.
Nope, still not.
Oh, man, that's crazy. So how did you and Mr. No Name meet?
We met at work. He was working for a restaurant that came to cater an event that I was managing, and it was a 3-day long event. And on the third day, his boss was like, hey, you should come by the restaurant. I'm sure that Mr. over here would, you know, give you some free food. And I was like, yeah, okay. And my husband was like, yeah, you should come. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then like walked into our break room, and he followed me into the break room and was like, no, seriously, do you want to go on a date sometime? And I, like an asshole, told him to take my phone number and ask me again tomorrow, and got lucky enough for him to not be put off by my assholishness. And he called me the next day and we went on a date, and the rest is history.
So I have a few questions about that.
Okay.
First of all, he followed you into the break room, and you didn't turn around and slap him and say, time's up, creeper, hashtag get the fuck out of here.
Nope, I didn't. No. I mean, you know, we'd been like flirting. He's cute and I liked him already. So like, it wasn't like, oh, this creep is following me in here. I was like, oh, good, he's following me in here. This is good and be good. Got
you. And my other question is, what is asshole-ish about giving him your phone number and telling him to ask you tomorrow?
You don't think that's like a jerk move to be like, okay, yeah, ask me again tomorrow if I want to go out with you? In my defense, yeah, I agree. Like, it's not the biggest asshole move because I was at work and I like didn't really feel like I needed to give him an answer. But on the other hand, he was just being like a genuine dude who like wanted to know if I wanted to hang out with him. I could have just been like, yes, take my number and we'll figure it out later. Instead, I was like, I don't know, take my phone number.
Was it your real phone number?
It was, yeah. He got a hold of me. Obviously, we're married now, so I It wasn't a fake number.
Okay, so then it's not asshole-ish. When I was in high school,
Okay.
I asked a girl for her phone number, and she gave me the phone number for the local police department.
Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you.
That's okay. Apparently, she was not the one I was supposed to spend the rest of my years with.
That's fair. That is fair.
I mean,
Apparently she wasn't your one.
it was a little bit of a dick move, but it also told me everything that I needed to know about the future of our relationship.
Yeah, I'm sure you took the hint. Yeah, no, I gave him my real number because I really did want him to call me again tomorrow and for him to ask me out again. But I don't know. I just didn't feel like trying to figure out a date while I was working at work, you know?
Yeah. No, that all makes sense. I'm sure he has forgiven you by now.
Oh, I'm not so sure about that, but, you know.
Well, maybe he's just keeping you on your toes.
He's just waiting. Waiting. No, sometimes he gets drunk and he's like, "You're so lucky I called you." And I'm like, "I know." Like, I almost didn't. And I'm like, "Okay, but you did. So I'm glad you did. I love you."
Wow. Have another pickleback,
This is
brother.
unimportant.
So I feel like from social media that I have been spying on you about, I feel like you were recently in Italy. Is that correct?
That is true.
Was that a honeymoon?
Also, I told you that on an email. So
Yes, you did. tell me
yeah, it was our honeymoon. We spent 2 weeks in Italy.
Wow. Can I ask where,
Yeah.
or is that a secret?
Yeah, no, you can ask where. That's fine.
Okay, hold on
we
one
went
second.
To visit.
Hold on. So where did you guys spend your honeymoon? In Italy?
Okay, that's not really NPR voice anymore. It's kind of creeper.
Yeah,
voice
that was
now.
kind of creepy, right? Sorry about that.
It was-
So, hey,
that's okay.
Where in Italy were you guys?
That's better. We went to visit. I have family who lives there still, so we went to visit them. I will not tell everybody where that is.
Yeah,
if
it'd
you
be
follow me on
easy-
social media, you know where it is.
It'd
But
be
I'm not
super
gonna
easy
just
to find all of the no-name people in Italy. So don't.
That's true.
Yeah, don't give a specific
Don't do that.
location. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we went to Pescara, which is a little coastal town on the east coast of Italy. And then we went to Bologna. Then we went to Venice. And then we ended in Rome.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You did.
It was
How long
fun.
were you there?
2 weeks.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. I had never been to Pescara or Bologna, so it was nice to go places I'd never been before. And then I had only been to Venice as a kid, so it was awesome to go as an adult. And then Rome is just awesome all the time. So
My
yeah,
wife,
it was really good.
my wife and I have been to Rome once. A couple of years ago, we went to Paris for Christmas, just the two of us. And while it was awesome, and while we were there, we just popped over to Rome for a couple of days, and it was gorgeous.
It's hard to do for just a couple days. There's so much to do, but yeah, I mean, I think we spent 5 days there, and it still felt like we wanted to do more things than we actually got to do. So I don't know. I love Italy.
It was awesome. We actually popped over there for a specific reason. There's a tombstone that we wanted to go see. It's kind of a special one. I guess it's a popular one. It's been replicated like 40 times worldwide, but the original is there in Rome. So we wanted to go check that out.
What tombstone is it?
It's called the Angel of Grief.
Oh, yeah. I've seen this. I mean, I haven't seen the actual one, but I've seen pictures of this before. That's really pretty. Aw,
Yes.
we were just like by there.
Yeah, I bet you were.
Sorry. It's interesting that that's the thing that you go visit.
Well, it sort of started because there was one in the town that she grew up in Mississippi, and she would see it, like she saw it her whole life growing up. Every time they would go to the cemetery or whatever, there was always parades and a big festive event at the cemetery, and her whole family, grew up seeing this angel. But we had the opportunity to pop over to Rome and go check out the original. So it was really cool.
So obviously you had to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were pretty close to that non-Catholic cemetery of Rome.
Yeah, it has like
The
three different.
non-Catholic.
Yeah, it's called the Protestant cemetery or the non-Catholic cemetery, and then I think it has one more other name.
Leave it to the Romans to be like, and this is the not Catholic thing. Don't worry about it.
Well, but also right smack dab in the middle of that cemetery is a giant pyramid, which I'm sure you saw.
Mm-hmm.
But that is like a cat sanctuary. So there's like 200 homeless cats that live there and get fed. And
They have like 3 or 4 of those, actually. They have one in like literally ancient Roman ruins. It's just like oh, here's where people in the, first century BC were living. Also, here's a bunch of cats we take care of. Like, don't feed them, please. It's ridiculous. But it's kind of fun to be like, oh, that's actually the life. Like, if I were going to be reincarnated as anything ever, I would want to be reincarnated as the cats who just get to, like, get fed for free and hang out in ruins.
So all
That's
cats.
what I would do. No.
None of them
just
work.
these
They don't
specific
do
cats.
anything. Oh, those specific ones?
Yeah.
That was one of the things that kind of pissed me off about when we went to Rome, because I guess we timed it wrong because the Colosseum was covered in scaffolding, so we couldn't really see it. And then the Trevi Fountain was under construction, and so there was barricades, and we couldn't see that either.
Well, you went in winter, right?
Yeah, we went in December for Christmas.
Yeah, that's a hard time. We timed it pretty good. We got really lucky, actually. We went in the first 2 weeks of October, and it was 70 and sunny every place that we went the entire time. And when we left, Venice is flooded now, like under 2 feet of water flooded. And Rome was immediately having these giant hail and thunderstorms. So we got pretty lucky with our timing of it, for sure.
Sounds like. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Are you mad at Steve for breaking up the band?
No, I'm not. I think that Steve moving is definitely the reason that we ended. But I also think that, 5 years is a long time to do anything. And I think we were due for at least a break. So how can you fault somebody that you care about for like going to do this amazing thing in their life? Thinking Sideways was awesome, but every week for 5 years is a lot of work with no vacations. I'm not mad. Yeah. Let's just say I'm not mad.
Well, I think that was really sweet how you said that, how can I fault somebody for doing something that
I mean, I'm jealous. If I'm being honest, I would love to just pick up and move to a different country. Like, that is the dream. And if I would hope that, if the shoe were on the other foot and I was like, hey, I have this opportunity to go do this thing and I'm going to go do it, that neither of them would have been like, no, fuck you, you're not. That, we're like family and I can't be sad. I mean, I can be sad, but I can't be mad that he went to go do a cool thing with his life, which I think it looks like it's being pretty cool.
It does look really cool from all of his posts. Yeah. It looks amazing. Yeah. When I was talking to Steve about him moving, his attitude about it was so amazing. Because, this was a month before they moved. And my big thing with people is I always want to know what made them think they could do whatever. Yeah. Like if I'm talking to an actor, I'm like, what made you think that you could act, or a singer or a guitar player? Like, I'm always interested in what made you think you could do that. But when he was talking about that they were getting ready to move to Hanoi, he had this air of, like, for me, growing up, it was out of the realm of possibility that I would ever even leave Texas for a visit. And so there's always this, I guess, sort of a kind of something that I feel like is holding me back. I'm not supposed to, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not worth it, or whatever it is. But when he was talking about moving to Hanoi, and I was like, why? And he was like, why not? And I was just like, what the shit? You can just, why not? Like, how does that work? And I was just so jealous of his attitude about, like, why wouldn't I do that? I mean, it's available and I want to do it. So why not? And I was just like, I'll be damned.
Yeah. He definitely traveled a lot as a kid. He was an Army brat. So, they traveled around a lot, moved a lot, I guess. It wasn't really traveled around, but I feel like it's not necessarily how you're raised, because my brother and his wife, they are the why not people too. They've moved so many different places. In like 1 year, they lived in Italy, and then they went and lived in Southeast Asia, and then they went to New Zealand, and then moved to Colorado, and then they moved 3 different states. Their whole attitude is also like, well, why not? Like, why wouldn't we just go do this? And, he and I were raised the same. We had the same parents, and it wasn't like his upbringing was drastically different than mine, but I think there are just people in this world who their brain's just like, well, why not? And I'm with you. Like, my brain is not that way at all. My brain is like, okay, and then I would have to sell my car, and then I have to get rid of all my belongings, and what am I going to do about my family and all of my clothes? And there's so many barriers in my brain of just the why not. Steve is definitely one of those people who was just like, yeah, why not? I mean, like I said, he's the one who wanted to do the podcast. He was the why not behind Thinking Sideways. So I wasn't particularly surprised when he was just like, yeah, here we go. Going to this terrifying new country. And just like moving there for a while. That wasn't so surprising necessarily, because that just kind of seemed like him always, his attitude always, you know?
Very cool. So I'm constantly amazed at the people who, you know, like your brother, who just travel all the time. But I have a sneaking suspicion that your brother's travel schedule is heavily influenced by his wife, and maybe she grew up a little bit differently than the two of you.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, he was doing it before they met, you know, so it's not as though it was just her.
Oh, well, there you go.
I think that was something that drew them together, was that they both were kind of why not people. I don't know. I'm jealous of it for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, the way they do it is panic inducing to me. You know, they'll get down to their like last couple $100 and they're like, okay, well, we'll figure out a way to get home. And I'm like, I would be crying in a corner somewhere if that were me. Like, oh my God, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's my nightmare.
I'm with you. I'm with you. That is one of the absolute scariest things to me, is to be in another country with $9 and no way to get home. No way.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I'll take staying at home versus that, which is why we're not why not people.
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, let me ask you this. I did not ask your fellow hosts this. Why did you guys decide to name the show Thinking Sideways?
Because it seemed good and the domain was free, if I'm being honest.
No. Come up with a better excuse than that. Make up a story.
No, I mean, we had a lot of different names. If you want to know why we settled on Thinking Sideways, it was because we thought it was a good name and because there wasn't already something already called that, and we could buy the domain and actually build a brand that didn't already exist. I'm sure that Joe told you that he petitioned heavily for the show to be called Danger Probe, which I thought maybe wouldn't sell as well with certain audiences. We had a lot of different
Danger Probe
ideas.
sounds oddly sexual.
Yeah, right? That's what I kept
my
saying.
gosh.
And they were like, no, not at all. I don't know if you've noticed what Joe's Twitter handle is or not, but it's Danger Probe.
It is Danger Probe.
I know. Yeah, it's weird, right? But no, I mean, we came up with a lot of different, and please do not ask me what other ones we came up with, because frankly, that was at this point probably a good 6.5, 7 years ago. But we definitely came up with other names that we liked and then did market research. You know, I think if people want there to be this like romantic story behind things, but we thought, you know, is there a domain that's free that we can buy that's actually this name or something close to it? Are there social media handles that are this name or something close to it? When you search this name in the iTunes podcast app, what comes up? You know, things like that. There are things that you do have to consider if you're genuinely intending to build something versus why notting it, I guess. But yeah, that's the honest to God truth, is we liked it. It was one of our top contenders, and then the market told us it was one of the better names. Sorry.
No, I think that's great.
Somebody on Instagram already owns Thinking Sideways, and as far as I know, it is a still defunct. There's like 4 posts on it.
And that's why you're Team Sideways?
Instead, we're Thinking Sideways podcast instead of Thinking Sideways.
Oh, so Team Sideways is Twitter.
Yeah, it's just the name that I use for all of it. Let's see. Yeah, they have 2 posts. The most recent post is from 2013.
Oh, come on.
They are Christian Filmmakers Friends, North Texas, Thinking Sideways.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a bummer that we didn't get that, you know.
That is a bummer.
But it's fine. Like I said, we made sure that some good iteration of us was available on all the social medias. So,
well, I think it worked. You guys were a branding powerhouse. Y'all did very well at that.
Well, thank you. I think we don't really hold a candle to, say, like True Crime Garage. or my favorite murder in the branding realm, but I think we did okay.
Well, this is going to make me sound like a dick, but did you say True Crime Garage?
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
That's okay.
I'm not even kidding. Now, my favorite murder, sure,
okay.
but I didn't even know that was a thing. True Crime Garage.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
Well, there you go.
They're pretty popular.
Nice.
Yeah.
I know you told me what your favorite episode was, but can you think of maybe your favorite thing that came out of the podcast? Whether it was an experience or meeting somebody, or you can even say the money. But like, was there a favorite thing that would not have happened in your life were it not for the podcast?
The money wasn't as good as I think people think it was, so I'm not going to say the money.
People think that the money was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we know it wasn't.
That's from, like, My Favorite Murder, I read somewhere they make $80,000 an episode or something like that, which was not what we were making. But not all podcasts. Yeah, money was not ridiculous. Honestly, I think my whole life would be different if I hadn't done the podcast. I feel like the community is probably one of the things that is one of my favorite things. Frankly, it was very unexpected. You know, there were some things that you could say, okay, I know you just started this podcast. I'm going to tell you in 5 years, you know, these are your download numbers. And I would be like, great. And there are some things that I would have figured would have come with that. But I think the community was the thing that I didn't realize was going to happen and did happen and ended up being really great. I mean, we had this amazing mod team on Facebook, and they still have this casual Facebook chat that I'm a part of and are like very good friends, and, you know, continue to stay in contact and chat with each other about their lives. And I think that's so wonderful. And I think that just the community of people who are interested in these things, and, you know, to find a bunch of other people who are interested and we're not weirdos, and we're actually kind of cool people who have a lot of other things in common, and getting to meet so many of the fans and the people in the community was probably my favorite part of it. And it was totally unexpected. I mean, I remember the day that we got 1,000 downloads total, and we were like, oh my God, we're famous. This is amazing. And little did we know that, you know, that was just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And we, you know, would get a couple emails from people, and that was it. And it was kind of cute and fun. And then it turned into this kind of amazing thing where we got to meet thousands of people who were just liked listening to the thing that we were making and just, you know, wanted to interact with us. And that was amazing. So yeah, that was probably my favorite part.
I remember when I first started, on my calendar on my phone, I would mark the day and the time in 100 download increments. You know, like I was like, woohoo, I'm at 100. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm at 200. And then when I hit 1,000, I wanted to throw like the biggest block party ever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And you hit these numbers, and then you're like, okay, that was cool. Next. And then I think at some point you kind of stop paying attention, and then you loop back and you're like, oh shit, is that how many people are listening to us? Because that seems bonkers. There's no way that that's true, but okay. I mean, I guess it could be, I don't know. And I don't know, you just don't think that many people are going to be interested in what you're doing, but they are. And, you know, like I said, at the kind of beginning of this I wasn't expecting to meet people who actually cared about the people who are making the thing that they were listening to. But while it was a double-edged sword, because some people kind of abused that, it was kind of amazing to meet all these people who are really interested and are great to interact with. I mean, I can post on Twitter about some weird, like, historical pattern that I'm trying to figure out, and a bunch of people who follow me because of the podcast, because they met me through this weird true crime unsolved mystery thing I did, are like, oh yeah, I can help you with that pattern, no problem. Like, that's crazy to me. It was so unexpected, and it's been kind of just such a weird ride of emotion.
I agree.
Roller coaster is what they call that.
They
roller coaster.
They do call that. They do call it that. I agree with you. Some of the people that I've gotten to meet are some of the coolest people, and it's amazing how I've been able to keep in touch with some of these people. And, you know, we kind of do things for each other sometimes. And I mean, my logo actually came from a listener. I mean, it's just the coolest thing. Like even, you know, like the way I'm recording this episode, I got from your boy, Steve. So, I mean, it's just, it's really cool. I love the people and like you said, the community. It's just been really cool. As we're wrapping up here, can you tell me or us what's next for Devin No Name?
Devin No Name. I am working on a podcast project of an indeterminate kind of time frame. I'm actually kind of I'm working on one that's a totally different format. It, I think, is going to be fun. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure it's going to be fun yet, but I think it's going to be fun. It's kind of like a quiz show meets Whose Line Is It Anyways sort of thing that should be pretty cool. It's totally different. It is, you know, I figure if I'm going to get back into the podcasting world, I need something that's like easy and fun for me, you know, because something about doing 8 additional hours of work a day on something for fun is kind of bonkers.
Yeah, you guys spent
feel like
a
I need
lot
that
of
again.
time researching.
We did. And, you know, maybe 8's an exaggeration, but we definitely spent a lot of time researching and doing a lot of work to produce the podcast. And so this project should be kind of fun and easy for me, which is cool, and also should be fun and easy for people to listen to. I will definitely be posting about it on social media, but I think that will probably come out soon-ish. Hopefully early 2019, we'll start posting episodes, but I'm not 100% sure because all I'm doing is moderating and scorekeeping. So I'm trying to stay as far out of the nitty-gritty as I possibly can. So that is exciting and on the horizon. And I have a couple other projects I really want to do, but I'm having a hard time finding the time. So that will have to kind of wait. One of them is like about rap music, which I really, really want to talk about because I'm really, really into it, but it's hard to find time to do things. You know, you get older and then you're like, oh, where's all my time go in the day? So.
Indeed.
It just, you know, you do work, and I have a different job than I had for the majority of the time that we did the podcast. I love it, and it's amazing and wonderful, but it is a bit more demanding, and I feel like I come home from work and I'm like, oh God, okay, I just want to sit and do nothing for a minute, and then suddenly a minute turns into, oh, now it's bedtime, and then you wake up and you do it all over again. So I just need to get better at making time to do things I care about, but who has the time to make time?
Well, I feel like you deserve to have a few months off. I mean, you were burning the candle at both ends, you know, for 5 years.
That's true, though I've had some time off.
Yeah, but
I made a dress. I made a kind of a crazy dress. That's how bored I was. Because I was like, I can't find time to do anything. I'm just going to make a dress. And I did. And now I feel like I need a break from everything. Because I guess I'm just a crazy person.
You're all, now I feel like I need a break from making dresses.
Yeah, time for a podcast.
Well, as we're winding down, Devin, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm Miss DK Power. It's MISSD as in Devin, K as in Kilo, Power at, whatever. So my Instagram is at Miss DK Power. My Twitter is at Miss DK Power. I have a Facebook, but it's still just my personal Facebook, and it's like pretty locked down. So don't go. So you don't have a Facebook? I mean, no, definitely don't have a Facebook.
Yes.
Definitely not. And, I have an email address, which is missdkpower@gmail.com.
Oh, interesting.
If you want to email me, but don't be rude about it. I've gotten a couple emails. It's actually crazy when you put your email address out on the internet, a bunch of people add you to lists of things, and you get a lot of spam. This is a mistake I made.
That is the truth.
There you go. So yeah, if you want to email me, you can. Just be nice about it. Don't be a weird robot.
Yeah, don't be a weird robot. And also, don't be bonkers.
Don't be a bonkers robot.
Yeah, that should be your next podcast.
Yeah.
Bonkers Robot.
Okay. I'll tell my co-conspirators, my new co-conspirators, that we have to totally rename the concept. New concept.
So on that subject, when you guys do decide that y'all are going to start releasing, if you guys want to put together like a promo for it, I would be happy to run it on my show and kind of help get the word out.
Awesome. Cool. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're definitely going to do some stuff. Podcasts we listened to reached out and said they want to do an episode on whatever new thing it is that I release. And I think they don't really actually know what they're signing up for. I think they're going to be like, it's going to be of the caliber of Thinking Sideways. And it's like, nope, it's just dumb people making up stupid facts. So good luck. Which I guess is really all Thinking Sideways was too, according to a lot of people, was just like dumb people sitting in a room making up facts. But, that's, I guess, my MO. So
well, fuck those haters. They can fuck right off.
Yeah, that's kind of where we landed too.
All right, cool. Well, yeah. Devin from Thinking Sideways, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to hang out and help us get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. It was good to chat with you and get to know you a little bit better too. And you listeners, I'm glad I don't know anything about you.
Nice.
Just kidding.
I recently had one of the people that I had on my podcast. He actually made a promo for his podcast for me to play on my podcast, sort of like I offered you. Mm-hmm. And the way he did the promo was he starts it off with, "Hello, streetwalkers." And I was like, what? What the hell? And he was like, now that I've got your attention, because you're not really streetwalkers.
See? It's good. Shock value is good.
I loved it.
It's important. Yeah.
All right, Devin.
That's the lesson from today.
Thank you again so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem.
You have a great rest of your evening.
You too.
Bye, Devin.
Bye.
Hey guys, this is Steve Owens from Fascination Street Podcast here with a very important message. I'm awesome. I bet you thought I was going to say something else, but nope. What's important here is that I am awesome. I started this show because I truly believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear those stories. In the short time I've been doing this show, I've interviewed actors, directors, writers, inventors, podcasters, musicians, pro athletes, Olympic athletes, actual war heroes, even a Bond girl and a luthier, whatever the hell that is, and of course, regular people. From people who wanted to be stars but never gave it a real try, to big company CEOs and people who got to meet their favorite president. I love getting to meet and speak with people who have a story to tell. I feel like everyone does, and it's my job to get them to tell it. You never know who my next guest will be. An Academy Award-winning actor, a platinum-selling musician, or your own mother-in-law. But one thing is for certain, you will be fascinated by their story. So come take a walk with me down Fascination Street. You can find Fascination Street Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and of course, FascinationStreetPod.com. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.